With the college football playoff expanding to 12 teams kicking off today, officially in Dublin, Ireland, would it be safe to say that the Florida State Seminoles, being ranked number 10, would be on upset alert? Would be a surprise?
Damn you!
I don't believe anything.
Well, it's true. Want to find out who they were on upset alert against? Find out next on Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Welcome back, fans. Good to see you again on another edition of Gridiron Gab Triple Option. I am, of course, Mr. CeeLo here. Glad to be back with you. It seems like forever since we've been talking about college football. We've expanded to a 12-team playoff. And today we got to see one of those teams in action in the Florida State Seminoles. Looking here, there's Georgia Tech's 24-21 win, winning on the final seconds on a field goal. There's only one way to describe Georgia Tech's victory over Florida State. I don't want to say dominant, but it's, as I say to all my on all my platforms, especially when it comes to week ones, whether it's college football, whether it's high school football, whether it's NFL football. Week ones are the most dangerous games for a less talented team or a unfavorable matchup team to pull the upset. Georgia Tech came out and did the one thing that many analysts, including myself, doubted they could do: win in the trenches. The Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets were just absolutely, I don't want to say dominating, but they did something that we couldn't have, none of us could have predicted. And Kyle Efford for the Jackets had 10 tackles today. And early on, the tone was set by that defensive line led by Romello Height, who had a sack called back because at the very tail end, he was Uyunglele, dropped below and Height's finger ended up just getting enough of the face mask for it to get called.
What?
Nonetheless, Georgia Tech's defensive front was giving Florida State's offensive line fits. And I could not believe how well this defensive line was able to, I don't want to say impose their will, because they not necessarily imposed their will, but they were able to just stand up the Florida State offensive line. And the truth of the matter is, DJU was not able to, do the things that Jordan Travis was able to do. And believe it or not, it caused a lot of problems because it looked as though Georgia Tech had no fear of him. And there were a couple of plays where he actually had guys open down the field. And those are plays he's got to hit. As I said, the junior from Dublin, Georgia, guys, Romello Height, also a USC transfer, was all over the place today. He was all over the place today, as well as those defensive backs. Zeke Biggers had a great game, 6'6", 320. He was very active on the inside, and I remember hearing one of the analysts say that when he's a guy that you could move him to the edge, he's going to be a guy that's going to play on Sunday. He's going to be a huge asset to anybody that drafts him on Sunday. Kevin Harris had a good game today as well. He had 2 tackles and a sack today. So you gotta look at the fact that the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets are a team that is going to cause a lot of issues up front. They're very disruptive and they're very fast, deceptively fast. As I said, Biggers and Height were the two catalysts up there. And then you had a lot of guys in that secondary from Efford to Harvey to Brooks. Brooks and Harvey had 7 tackles today. Tatum also big over there in that secondary. He had 6 tackles. Kyle Efford had 10 tackles. And over at it, and the guy that everybody wanted to talk about, Haynes King, which, and I'm going to be honest with you, King's got to get that accuracy down. If he can throw the ball accurately, coupled with his running ability, he had 54 yards. He had some really nice timely runs, but he has got to hit throws in the end zone. They had one. They ended up scoring a touchdown, but he's got to hit those. He has got to hit those big plays. You know, he's got a guy like Malik Rutherford that you've got. He's a very good wide receiver. He's a huge type of speed guy. Yeah, Georgia Tech's got weapons. They've got some weapons. But let's not make this all about Georgia Tech. And let's look at the Florida State side. Whereas DJU, there were 2 big plays that he missed on. And they're costly. They're hugely costly because unlike Georgia Tech, they didn't score on those opportunities. And not to mention, King had 2 fumbles that were recovered by Georgia Tech. When you get those opportunities, you have to maximize those. Normally, when a team that is not ranked makes those kind of mistakes, it usually turns out in your favor. But today, that did not happen for FSU. FSU ended up on the wrong side. And believe it or not, outside of that 8-7 lead they had, once Georgia Tech got on top, what was it? 11-7? I'm sorry. Yeah, 11-7. Georgia Tech never relinquished the lead after they jumped ahead 14-11. They never relinquished the lead. Now, I know somebody's going to say, oh, they did. They tied it up. Well, the reality of it is they never relinquished the lead. That's the same thing. They had the lead. They got tied, but they never relinquished it. Once they got ahead 14-11, they never relinquished the lead. So I don't need any smart in the comments saying, oh, well, they tied it, so that's not the same. Yeah, it is. Florida State never got back on top. And this is what shocked me more than anything else. And I was listening to plenty of shows. I was going to give a prediction on this show last night, but I was not too sure about where I wanted to go. Because part of me was saying that I thought Georgia Tech had a shot. Because everybody's saying that Georgia Tech's got Notre Dame later on in the year, and they believe that that's going to be their upset special. I believe this was it. I don't believe a team, unless they're Cinderella, and I don't see King being an upset special kind of guy coming through the rest of the season with the top-notch defenses. They're going to know that this guy is not as dangerous a threat because he had a guy he had one of his receivers down in the end zone wide open for 6. He had about 5 steps on him and he missed it. That's not to say that he can't improve later on in the season and that turns into 6. If that does, now mark my words, if that turns into 6, Georgia Tech could be special. Because looking at their schedule, people, outside of Notre Dame, now they do have Miami, they do have a gauntlet. 4 of the next final 5 games, you got number 7 Notre Dame, unranked at unranked Virginia, but they have number 19, who don't be surprised if Miami is a top 10 team by the end of the season.
Bruh.
Just saying. They host Miami and they host number 24 NC State. Then they have to go to Athens. If King can become a passer, a sufficient passer, and make teams pay for coming 7 and 8 up, they can become something special. They could become a 9-win team this year. Don't forget I said it. But where does Florida State go from here? Well, first thing you gotta figure out what cost you in this game. And honestly, you lost in the trenches. That's a big one. And then the other thing is King was able to get out of a lot of arm tackles that normally don't happen. And then you look at Georgia Tech's, what was known coming into this game is that Georgia Tech loves to run the football. 36 carries, 190 yards. In these long-winded drives that Georgia Tech was able to churn out, looking like the rumbling wreck. I mean, guys, this is not what you want to see if you are a coach that is trying to necessarily not only get the football back, but you're talking about, let's look at Georgia Tech's drive. You got 6 plays, 79 yards, 3 minutes. You got the 3-and-out punt. Then you had the 14-play, 75-yard drive for 7 minutes and 53, almost 8 minutes, you guys. Then they had the 11-play, 89 yards, 6-minute, 22-second drive. And honestly, when you do that, when you're having these sustainable drives, that's huge because it's not allowing you opportunities to get the ball back. And look, this is something that, this doesn't bode well for you if you're Florida State. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 possessions. 7 possessions in a game. And here's the thing. This is what you're proud of. You had a 7-play, 75-yard drive that was 4 minutes long. Then you had a 9-play, 44-yard that went over on downs at 4 minutes, 11 seconds. And then you had a drive that went 6 plays, 11 yards, 325, and you had a punt. Same thing here, 6 plays, 22 yards, 2 minutes, 13 seconds. Then you had an 8-minute, 24-second drive, 15 plays, 84 yards. And then Georgia Tech proceeded to run 12 plays, 49 yards, and they say end of the game, but it was a field goal, game-winning field goal. They had it 6 minutes, 33 seconds. Seems like every time Florida State scored, Georgia Tech had an answer. No matter what it was, Georgia Tech had an answer. It goes back to the field goal. Georgia Tech turned right back around and they scored a touchdown. Yeah, and we forget Georgia Tech missed one. At their first drive of the second half, they missed the field goal. So, realistically, this could have ran the clock out anyway. So, regardless of what people want to say is this game was literally over because they couldn't get them off the field on the final drive. But Florida State, I know I heard a lot of individuals say they did not want to win on the arm of DJ Uiagalelei, and honestly, I can tell why. He being a transfer, and it would not shock me if, and this is just early, I'm not trying to say that there should be a quarterback controversy, but I'm going to say this. DJ's probably going to be on leash. I get it. DJU is a senior, and you pretty much got freshmen. But you got a ton of running backs on this roster. And if they can't run the football, that's going to be a problem.
Run.
That's going to be a problem. And see, what I imagine they want to do is they want to use play action. But if they can't efficiently run the football, they're not going to be able to do that. And I remember listening to one of the guys, DJ may have to run the football a little bit. I mean, when I heard them say that he was 6'4", 252, I had to, what? That ain't no quarterback. That's a linebacker. But they may have to utilize him more running the football with that kind of size. I mean, you don't want to take too many licks from a guy that's over 250 pounds. And I understand you don't want to get him taking too many big hits as well. But until DJ is capable of putting that ball out there to where it needs to be on time, I just can't see having him out there to just be a guy handing the football. He's got to be a threat to throw it, or he's got to be a threat to run it. But to me, DJ being unable to hit those big ones, he missed about 3. He missed about 3 throws, and then I think there were 2 that were drops. So this is what Florida State's going to have to do. They're going to have to go back to the drawing board and figure out what about Georgia Tech in the trenches gave them such problems. because that's what I foresaw. I saw they beat them in the trenches. I saw the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets faster in the trenches, and they were stronger in the trenches. And they were unable to impose their will. Florida State had 31 carries, 98 yards on the ground. You got to put a 1 in front of Georgia Tech's. They ran for nearly 100 yards more on the ground. And they had two guys that broke two big ones, and that was Haynes King. And even DJU he had 6 carries for 7 yards. So, as I said, DJ's going to have to, they're going to have to figure out what's going to make him comfortable. Yeah, he struggled at times at Oregon State, and we all know about all of his issues at Clemson are well documented, and it's looking like more of the same here. I mean, I get it. You're learning 3 offenses in 3 years, but yeah, it's gonna have to be. Florida State's gonna have to figure it out, because I'm seeing people saying now Florida State's not gonna be a get into the 12-team playoff. I disagree. They still have the schedule to do it. They've got of course Clemson on the schedule, and they've got to go to Miami, and then they are at South Bend at Notre Dame, and then of course they got Florida at the end of the season, which who knows, Florida could end up being there. They could end up being in the top 25 by the time this is all over. You never know. But they've got 3 quality teams on their resume that they could get some pull with. But outside of that, as I said, I think Florida State's got to search for answers on that offensive line, and they've got to search for some answers with DJU. But let me know what you guys think about Georgia Tech's upset of number 10 Florida State in Dublin, Ireland. By the way, it's the first time College Game Day was there. As we all know, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish have played in Dublin, Ireland as part of their Shamrock series. So it's not the first college football game ever in Ireland, but it is the first time that College Game Day has been there. And as I said, you guys, let me know in the comments what you think about Georgia Tech's upset of number 10 Florida State. Also, go to the Gridiron Gab Triple Option page on Facebook and let me know what you think about it. Which team was it Georgia Tech won the game, or did Florida State lose the game? Also, go to my Instagram at Mr. CeeLo, find out the other things that I'm involved in. But until the next time, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.